Hey everyone, it's Jason. Welcome to a comparison video for Betrayal at the House on the Hill. So we have the second edition here, and then we have the recently released third edition. So I've done an unboxing for the third edition. I don't remember if I did one for the second edition or not. If I did, it was a long time ago. But I just recently I'm going to have one posted roughly the same time as this video for the third edition. You can see all the different components. So if there's something you're interested in, you can get an idea. What this video is going to do, I'm not going to get into too much in depth of how the game is played. I want to just show off what the differences are between the second and third edition. So that way, if you already own the second edition, is it worth your time to pick up the third one to update your game? Or if you played the second edition at somebody else's house, like should you try and just, I can get by getting the second edition, people are unloading it really cheap, maybe you can find it for like half price or something, or should you just go ahead and buy the new game anyhow? So the biggest difference between the two, before I even start going through all that, showing off all the different components, is the rules. Overall, 99% of the rules stay the exact same. One thing I noticed by going through looking at all the different tiles, the different cards, and some of the different stuff, like I didn't read through all the scenarios or the haunts because I didn't want to spoil, and I'm not going to spoil a bunch in here either, was that they made the rules and the game a little bit easier. As I kind of say that it's a game for kids now, like little kids can play it. No, not necessarily. I'm not saying kids can't play it, but what I mean is they didn't make it like a quote-unquote like baby game. They didn't take away the super difficulty of it. It's all still based on random turns. The haunt will happen. If someone has too much power, they might make it more difficult for the other team, depending on where they are, what happens, all that fun stuff. Like, all that core stuff stays the same. They just adjusted some of the little rules, and we will look at those in a little bit. What I want to do first is go through some of the main components, which are the characters and then the tiles, and then we'll jump into some of the other stuff. So I will have on the left side over here will be edition 2, and on the right side will be edition 3. Kind of keep those maybe like that as a little reminder in the background. So first thing I want to do is look at the character tokens or tiles. So in the second edition, we got the little hexagram, pentagram. No, pentagram is 6, hexagon. Hexagon is 6. I don't even know. It's this shape here. So here are two different tiles. I'm going to zoom in a bit so we can see them a little bit better. And maybe get those guys back a little bit farther so they're not right in the way. But yeah, they're going to have all your different stats on there. So a couple of things you're going to notice right off the bat is the art's a little bit better. In third edition, they substantially drew some better pictures and like kind of these sketch drawings. Couple other things you also notice. There's also a like texture on these cards. This is the same with all the tiles and everything else. And it's just kind of an upgrade thing. It helps that kind of diamondy shape, or however you want to call it. Does make these a little bit more durable. But it also kind of gives it that thing. Like, yeah, at distance you don't really notice it, but it does make it somewhat a little bit harder to sometimes read some of the numbers on there, like that 3 and 4 are definitely a lot harder to read on the third edition than on the fourth. And so that's because it's on black on color versus a muted color, some of that stuff. And then you also notice they put like the basic information of the character down here instead of around there. Now the characters are all different, so that's kind of a fun thing. So if you own both editions, you could utilize either character. They still work. They're going to have different stats. It's all the might for Oliver and Garen are the same, 7, 6, 6, 5, 4, 3, 3, 2. Their speed are different. So Darren has a little bit better speed at 7.7, and then he drops down to 4s, where Oliver goes down to 3. Looks like their knowledge is about the same. He has a little bit better knowledge towards the top. Sanity. That's where it's going to get trickier. So sanity and knowledge are flipped around. So if you're mixing them together, that could be an issue. But yeah, they do have different stats. The other thing that is, let me also flip these over. So we have Ox on that side. This side we have Joseph. So we do have different characters, different stats. And maybe these two line up. Yeah, even these don't line up the same. Because like speed is 6, 5, 5, and his starts at 8. So they get different stats. They didn't just recreate the characters, which is definitely a big thing about these comparisons. The overall gameplay is the same. They have the same type of components. The rules and stuff generally work the same, other than little twists here, little fixes here and there. But like most of the other stuff is new. Like the characters are new, they work the same way, but they're new characters. Lots of the events and some of the omens and stuff have changed enough, so it's not like you're just replaying the same game. Now here's another update is they have on here is they have little notches on here, so you can kind of like notch this down or up, and it has a little thing in there. It kind of holds it in there. But yeah, let me see how hard that is for me. It's not super hard for me to move, but it does kind of like notch a little bit in there, so it's easier to move. The second edition had these ones that look like little crypts, and this is how they stood on here. So it's hard to even tell where that's aimed. That's very easy to tell which number that. And plus, if I let go of this, it's gonna slide right off. So when you're picking these up to try and adjust them, you're laying them on the table, it might not be so bad. But if you have to pick them up for whatever reason, to like maybe adjust a different one or something, or someone moves the table, these can slide very easy. So that was definitely a great fix. So I'm just going to jump through the rest of the characters really quick, and I want to spend a ton of time on them. So we have, our yellow characters, which are our little girls. So each class gets, there's a young boy, a young girl, a middle-aged, or a teenage man, boy and girl, a man and woman, and then an adult man and woman, like older one. So 6 characters. So we got our yellow characters, which are our littler girls. Our blue, which are our adult women. You see we're getting some different types of characters there. Our green, which are our young boys. And you can see they changed some of the races. Like the newer one, both of them are, they both look like they're black kids. Where this one's like, Brandon is this possibly, he looks like he's probably Asian, versus this guy could also be Asian, or he go with Akamoto. So they just changed some of that around a bit. Of course, we got our fathers. We're a priest, so then they flip over and they kind of become. Now he's a scientist, and then he becomes like a doctor. So a little bit different there. And then our final one are our teenage girls. We have Jenny and Michelle, and Heather and Brittany. So those are different characters. I don't want to spend too much time on their stats and that, because it's not that big of a deal. I do want to look at the miniatures though quick. So the original miniatures were all colored, versus the new ones, which are not colored. The color ones are kind of neat, add a little bit extra thing, but then you kind of got like, and they're sort of color coded, so we got like red and yellow. I think part of the reason why they left them unpainted, because people, modeling or painting your own miniatures is becoming a lot more popular thing in recent years. It wasn't just like Warhammer or mech games and stuff like that. Like people are buying, like more gamers are buying regular miniatures and doing it. So now it's an option to like paint these guys how you want them. Plus, you could paint them different colors. Like, it's like they're kind of like what color their character. They kind of made everyone sort of the same-ish color. They're kind of like, they're not quite like a dark brown, but they're not like a Caucasian white. They're kind of like in that middle, so they can find, okay, maybe they're either one. Maybe it's a really tan guy or it's a really light-skinned person. Just kind of, I think, to fit either design. So now you can actually go through and paint them. The other thing that's cool is because I have the bases to show up, which really help you. I'm the red guy, I'm the yellow guy. But they all pop off. So you can mix and match them around if you really wanted to. Although the miniature for the red guy does match the red base, but someone's like, I want to be this character, I want this colored base, though. You could swap them around if you want. So at least there's an option there. So we're just going to jump through the last of these. There's my blue character. She's doing the Michael Jackson lean. You also see these miniatures are a little bit bigger. Helps just move them around. Helps keep them a little bit sturdier. I don't know if they necessarily have any more detail to them. But they're like holding different items and stuff, which is kind of cool. So again, so which one... So out of the character cards, I definitely prefer... I prefer the upgraded sliding part for the newer ones. Although that text could be a little bit nicer. The miniatures, I could go either way on it. I do kind of like the painted ones because they look really cool, and I don't have time to paint. I'm not good enough at painting, especially this small of detail. But I have enough miniature games without them that I'm not that concerned. That I'd be just fine using the regular ones. So they're here or there. Again, if you have both editions, you could always mix and match them. Alright, up next we're going to look at our tiles. So we of course have our base tile here for set number 2. And then you have your grand staircase, your foyer, and your entrance hall. Which all have a little asterisk next to them because they all have special rules. So that is that one. Now, here's our new one. Zoom out just a tad. So they have this little symbol in there now, showing that these are starting locations. They also have extra little text on them saying what they do. Now, again, you're going to have this kind of texture to them, so I'm not going to keep bringing this up on all of them. But you can see the difference in there. The artwork is different. So I think the newer ones on the bottom have overall more detailed artwork. There's more use of shadows and different colors and less muted tones throughout all the artwork, which we'll see. So that's kind of nice. But then with that kind of and like the foil here or the texture on here, it does kind of make reading some of these hard. So it's like even after you get up close, it says leads to the secret staircase or leads to the upper landing, versus this nice bold white text, which I get kind of covers up some of the wording or the picture a little bit, especially if you get wordier cards. But it does kind of make it nice not to have that. The other big difference you're going to kind of notice is these have big bright yellow doors, whereas these ones, they do have a little yellow trim on them to show like they're an entrance or an exit door, but they're not like super standing out. Again, they tried to make everything kind of blend to just give more of a feel to the game. So the next ones we're going to look at are the other two base tiles, and I'm going to kind of flip through them. So we got our basement landings. So you can see the differences in here. Big bright yellow doors versus, you can tell they're doors, but they're not like distracting from the artwork. A little bit more detail in there. So for something like this where there's not words on the cards or text, the newer ones are actually overall a little bit nicer. And then we got like the upper landing. But now this one does have words, but just a reminder that it leads to the ground staircase. They also have the starting tile on there, just as a reminder. And then the same thing on the backs. These don't say anything, versus these guys on the backs will say which ones they are. So you can find them a lot quicker while you're playing the game. Alright, so those are our starting tiles. Then we're going to jump in, and we got a bunch of these I have these set up in special ways. So on the backs, we're going to get our things that are going to show our different locations. So, second edition on the left side, upper ground just shows a big, generic-y looking square house. The new one kind of shows a little bit more interesting looking house. And then it just has the word ground on top instead of on the image. Then if we get one that's multiple, it'll say like ground basement. You know, it'll just show it off like that. Versus like this one might say all three. So yeah, it's, again, which way's better? Neither one are worse or better either way. They're both just different. But then they're different artworks. You can't clearly mix and match them. So I'm going to jump through it. These are the rooms that are the exact same named rooms, but you're going to see they have different symbols in them. Part of that is because there are more, or there are less omens, and I don't know if there's the same number of events or not, but they switch some of them around just so they work a little bit differently, or maybe they thematically might make a little bit more sense. But you can definitely see the conservatory, the different styles of artwork. So we're just going to flip through these that are the same. So like our organ room comes a little bit differently. You can see the doors are on different sides, so it also makes it a little bit different. So again, even if you're playing, I remember this room, it might be a little bit different. Statuary corridor ends up being basically the same. The dining room. Now this one has 4 doors and an event, where the original one had 2 doors and an omen. So that's kind of neat. It's a little bit different there, so you're not going to always have the exact same things. We have the kitchen. It's 2 doorways in different symbols, but in different spots. We have a ballroom. The underground lake, which stays pretty much the same. The charred room, again, goes from 2 doors to 4 doors, and they probably try to keep the same number of door cards like that the same. They just change some of them. We have a different game room. And finally, the bloody room, which, like, the newer room looks a lot neater, because this was just like, there's a chair with a stain in there. Like, oh, maybe this is an old haunted house. This looks like someone's maybe recently been there. Alright, so then the next bunch we're going to go through are ones that have special text on them, but they're still the same room. So we have the gymnasium. So now again, you can see the difference in that text on there. The second edition, nice and bold, says once per game. If you end your turn here, gain 1 speed. Now, the other one does say, it says, when you... Now, again, I can't read it from right here without moving this. It says, when you discover this tile, gain 1 speed. So there's a difference in abilities. So lots of the gaining abilities in this one is when you discover it, you gain that, and then it's done. Rather than when you end your turn there. So the gymnasium, you can keep coming back here and keep boosting your stats. The newer game, you only get that once, and then it's done. So once you've discovered that room, there's no other reason to go back there, like, other than to walk through. So the library is going to be the same thing. This one's for knowledge. We have the larder for might. And then we have the chapel for sanity. So there's our 4 different stats. We do have the chasm, which they did change. So the original one had a special thing, so you only attempt a speed roll of 3+ to cross. If you fail, stop moving. So it limits your actions trying to go through the rooms. This one doesn't have that. There might be different haunts or other things that might add that to that, but just generally, that card doesn't stop you. I think they try to do some of that stuff to make this a little bit easier. Same thing, they have the furnace. Here you go, so end of your turn. If you stay here, take 1 physical damage. Furnace looks a little bit cooler in the newer one. We have the collapsed room, which does change a little bit. The second edition says when you attempt a speed roll of +5 to avoid falling. If you fail that roll, draw a basement tile and put it in play. You fall there and take 1 die of physical damage. Basically, you have to roll 5 or higher, or you fall to the basement and you play it. The new one says, if you end your turn here, make a speed roll. It's the same thing. 5+, nothing happens. So same idea there. But 4 to 0, place your explorer on the basement landing and take a physical damage. So this just moves you to the basement landing, where the original one, you'd actually add a different tile and drop there. So you might end up somewhere different in the basement, and then you have to find your way back to the landing. This one forces you to go to the landing. And then the last one that have very similar abilities in same games are the Mystic Elevators. So the original one is on your turn, roll 2 dice and move to this room to any open door. So 4, you go to any 4. 3 is upper floor, 2 is ground floor, 1 is the basement. And 0 is if you hit the basement, you take 1 die of physical damage. The newer one is the same thing. It says once per turn when you enter this tile, you may roll 2 dice. Move to the elevator to an open doorway. So it works the same way. All it just did was if you have 4+, you can go to any region they changed it to. And then 0 and 1, you go to the basement. They got rid of the damage. And that's one thing they're trying to make it a little bit easier, is that you're not being punished for going in and out of rooms. Maybe you take like 1 damage, like in the furnace, if you stay in there. But that kind of makes sense, but they're not trying to have these rooms where you get stuck in a room where you take damage. Like, I don't want to try using the basement because I might die, or the Mystic Elevator, I mean. So there was that. The next bunch of group we're going to go through are ones with the same name, but have different abilities. So the original tower says you attempt to might roll a 3 to cross. If you fail, stop moving. The new tower doesn't do anything. Same thing with the catacombs. If you attempt to sanity, roll a 6+ to cross. If you fail, stop moving. So it's kind of like that. The catacomb, or the chasm there. We have the graveyard. So the old graveyard says when exiting, you must attempt a sanity roll. If you fail, lose 1 knowledge but continue moving. So again, it has a negative reason. So like, what, other than when the first time you enter the graveyard, why would you ever go back in there? There's no reason to ever go in there, especially because it's a dead end. So now they made it one you can walk through, and it leads to the underground cavern. So it actually gives you a way to get to a different area in the room. Then we have the junk room. The original one says when you exit, you must roll a might roll of 3+. If you lose 1 speed, but continue moving. So it slows you down, but it slows you down permanently. The new junk room says when you discover this tile, place an obstacle token on it. Obstacle is a little extra token. You drop it in there. It says it takes +2 speed to move through this room. So yes, it's still going to be difficult to move through that room, but you're not suffering a permanent loss for it. Because again, if your speed or might or knowledge drop to 0, you lose. So having rooms that you can't go through without taking damage is kind of a hindrance. We have the gallery, which when you choose to fail here, you can choose to fall to the ballroom if it is in the house. If you do, take 1 die of physical damage. The other one just leads to the ballroom, so it lets you go there without having to take that extra damage. And our last one is the vault, which I think is lots of people's favorite. You come in there, you get 2 items, which is definitely great. The old one also had an event in there, so you had to worry about triggering something bad happening. Now you don't. And the other difference is the original, it says when you attempt a knowledge roll, a +6 to open and empty the vault. So to actually get to the items, you have to roll a 6+ of knowledge. So if you have a dumb jock character, for example, you might not ever be able to get in there. Now it's just, nope, you're there, go in there and get it. I don't mind the mechanic. It kind of makes sense for the vault, but it's the only card that did something like that. There was no other card that had, roll this die to activate this extra thing or do this extra thing. If more of them had that, that might be understandable, but since none of the other cards do, they kind of just scrap that mechanic. Again, plus, do I risk I'm being chased. Do I risk running to that vault to go get them items if I know it's there, trying to find that? Or do I get that room? Do I sit there and wait around, or do I die? Alright, so then the next bunch we have are ones that have similar names. I think they're supposed to be like the new versions, but they are, but they have different names. So they're kind of like, upgrades or like sister versions of them. So we have, staircase from the basement and the secret stairway. So this one leads to the foyer. The original one leads to the hallway. Now, so like all of this on the original one, that says it leads to the foyer, it does have a little asterisk. But you gotta go look at the book to see what that asterisk means. Now in the new one, it just says, hey, you're in the hallway. Guess what? It leads to the secret staircase. So you play that secret staircase, it leads there. You know, you don't have to sit there and try and look up to remember which one goes where. Then we have the chute. So the original one was the coal chute, which one-way slide to the basement landing. And then the new one says leads to the basement landing. If you end your turn on this tile, place your explorer on the basement landing. So again, it just does the same thing. Makes a little bit more sense why a house would have a longer chute versus why it would have a coal chute. Just how old would this house have to be to have a coal chute? You know, then again, it has, you know, all these other different rooms as well. So, you know, it is what it is. Then we have the research laboratory and the regular laboratory. Basically the same card, just slightly different names. The operating laboratory and the operating theater. Again, same idea, just different names. Master bedroom versus the primary bedroom. You know, 3 doors versus 2 doors. Interesting. Then we have a regular bedroom versus a winter bedroom. A servant's quarter versus a guest quarter. Guest quarter is a much nicer thing. Again, old-timey house, old place. That's why they had things like servant's quarters and a coal chute. And I think they're just trying to kind of move away from that. This is a more modern haunted house. We have a dusty hallway and a crawl space. And then the creaky hallway and the cramped passage. Both of them are just 4 exit rooms. But the new ones both have events on them. Where the other ones are just like, hey, here's this. You activate this. You kind of keep moving. The other one's actually like, hey, something could happen in this hallway. So that's kind of fun as well. Then the last group of tiles you have to go through are ones with completely different names. So these are all ones that I just stuck in here. They don't have any names. They don't really have anything that necessarily links them to each other. We have the pentagram chamber, which I suppose could be the same as the ritual room, but it doesn't have any ability. But again, the original pentagram chamber is one that says if you don't roll a knowledge roll, you lose sanity. So they got rid of that feature. And then behind that, we actually had the underground cavern, which we had mentioned before, leads to the graveyard. And we have like an attic, and we have an armory. So the attic, you lose speed, and the armory is actually a fun new one. It says when you discover this tile, reveal cards to the top of the item deck and to reveal a weapon, take it and bury the rest. So you get an extra item, just a different way, but you get a specific item. We had the crypt. We have a panic room. So the crypt says, if you end your turn here, take 1 point of mental damage. So there wasn't a equivalent of that. I have the panic room. Says you discover this tile. Sorry, I'm going to pull this up so maybe I'll read it a little bit better. So when you discover this tile, if the secret stairs has not been placed, find it in the tile stack and place it in the basement, and then shuffle the stack. So it lets you find that secret stairs. We have an abandoned room, and a specimen room. Most of the rest of these just extra rooms. They just changed. A storeroom. There's a salon, wine cellar, an observatory, gardens, nursery, patio, soundproof room, and then finally the balcony. So there might be one extra tile in the original set. But yeah, so there's just some different ones there. Yeah, so overall the rooms are very much the same thing. Just again, like I said, they took out lots of the negative stuff in them. So if you found that, or if you played the original game and you found that maybe to be an issue, where I don't like having to go through this room because I'm gonna lose speed, or if I have to end my turn there for some reason or either I end my turn there and I take a chance on rolling that dice to not lose one of my stats, or I have to stop one space closer. If you're being chased, that's, I get maybe dramatically wise that might be interesting, but it also takes all the fun because it's like, I don't want to die to a room with a bad roll versus, a bad roll from, like, a guy attacking me. And then here we have the two different, what are they called? The Omen trackers. These track your omens. So the original one went up to 12. The new one only goes up to 9. So the newer haunt is going to activate after 9 omen regardless. So when you hit that, basically that 10th omen, or 9th omen, which I don't remember if it activates on 9 or after 9. It's going to activate. So it's going to activate a little bit quicker. I mean, 3 cards, you might be, well, that's not much. But 3 cards could take how many more rooms to find 3 cards? If you keep getting bad dice roll. Because you could keep rolling blanks every single time. So you're just going to force activate it a little bit quicker, which is kind of nice. Alright, so then the next thing we want to do is I'm going to go through some of the tokens, and then we can go through some of the cards. But before that, I do want to look at the rule books. So, and then we can jump into those. Just that way you guys can see some of the different things. So, the original books, where we have the Trader's Tome, Survival, Secrets of Survival, and then the actual rule book. And then this one, we have, of course, our rule book, Trader's Tome, and the Secrets of Survival. So, just a little bit different. Original rule book, definitely not bad at all. Goes through, explains how all the different stuff works. Shows your layout on there, all that different stuff, your different components, how the doors work. Examples of moving, cards, all this different stuff. I don't have any overall problems with that. Shows how revealing haunts, what you can do during stuff, and then it has a glossary with all this extra different stuff in there. Just nothing terribly bad about that. The new one, though, is, I think, definitely a step up. Graphically, it looks a little bit nicer. They use different colors to kind of separate your different stuff out. Here's item symbols used. New stuff. So then now here's the big thing. If you've played this before, this is what we wanted to look at. Scenario cards, the reason why you're all here. The haunt no longer determines by consulting a haunting matrix. So before, there used to be a book you had to look at. This is the guide you had to look at previously, and you had to figure out what it was. So you look at, alright, what room did I activate that card in? The last omen, or I activate my haunting. What relic did I pick? Then it does that. Then you look down here and it tells you, okay, I'm doing haunt number 4. That's who I have to pick. It's not terribly bad. It's just a lot of stuff to go through. So the updated ones, which if I can get out of the box, because they're on the bottom, of course. They added these scenario cards. So they're going to be these 5 cards, which is what you're going to pick from at the beginning of the game instead of looking at that. And on the back, it's going to be very easy. Here's your 9 different items that you can get, your 9 different omens. So basically the haunt starts, if I had the dog, I'm going to do number 43. If I'm playing this one, I had the dog, I do number 42. If I had the dog in this one, I do number 20. And that tells you who the triggers. I don't have to look at a chart, mix and match all this. I can just easily be like, it's not what room was I in versus what did I do here. It's just, what omen did I have? here's what we're doing. The other neat thing that I did about these is because it also gives you an idea of what the haunt might be about. It could be paranormal investigators, a mysterious invitation, a curse, for sale, or a strange disappearance. So it adds into some more of that thematic role playing. I'm playing as this character. I've been, invited to this house because it's a fixer-upper and someone's trying to sell it. So I can, oh, my guy's moving around the house. I'm looking around the house to do this. Oh no, what happened in there? Here's what your different haunts are going to be. And there are going to be something that's going to have something to do with that. Like, if it's a strange disappearance, maybe it's like, oh, the person reappeared as a ghost, or they were a killer. Mysterious invitation. Why did someone invite you? It was a doctor trying to perform something. The paranormal investigators, you're probably dealing with ghosts. So that's kind of definitely a better way to do that. And the haunt roll is a little bit different as well. It says you make the haunt roll, you roll one die for each omen that has been discovered. If the result is 5 or higher, the haunt will begin. If it's not discovered on the last omen, it will be triggered automatically. So, just simplify how that haunt roll works. New terms: general damage, heal, bury, critical, special action, and line of sight. So we kind of looked at them in a bit. We have no skilling allowed. So before you could steal items from an enemy, if you defeat it with a might attack, you're no longer doing that. If a haunt does involve stealing, it will directly say so. This is kind of, I guess, a plus and minus depending on how you want to look at it. Because if the opponent had a machete, you could maybe try and hit them hard enough to steal their machete. But the problem is then you're kind of playing this game back and forth of, I'm trying to steal your thing, you're trying to steal my thing, until one character dies. And plus it might make you, since it had to be a might roll, it might force you to want to send like your higher level might character into do battle rather than maybe find a different solution. Turns out differently. In this edition, your turn is automatically discover a place or a room tile, resolve any effects on there, draw your cards, and then your turn is over. You may still end your turn voluntarily without discovering a new tile. You are not required to use all your movement. When the haunt begins, read your setup and introduction text before you leave the room. So both sides read how they're setting, like what they need to set up, and that. So there's more. It goes right to the next one. There's more information revealed. So all actions are considered to be open information. When you take an action during the haunt, other teams can ask you to explain what you're doing. If they do, you must read the text of that action although information in the haunt book is only secret till you use it. So if you're playing a mysterious scientist and you go to the basement and you roll a die to activate something, someone would be like, what are you doing? Like what did you activate? You have to tell them what you were doing if it's something in your book. If you don't want to do that yet, then don't. Or if you're playing a cult and you're trying to, I need to go to these rooms to light these candles. If you go to a room and roll for an action, you have to, someone asks, you have to tell them, what you're trying to do. Oh, I'm trying to light this candle. You don't have to give every single detail necessarily, but if it's something you're doing, oh, I'm trying to light this candle to start a ritual. You don't have to tell them, I have to light 5 candles. They just have to know what you're trying to do. So, okay, that's the candle I need to do. So you can't go to a room, roll some dice, and pretend you're doing something that you're not actually doing to throw them off, type of idea. And then dead explorers leave corpses. When your figure dies, figure remains where you died. Other explorers may take items and Omen from your corpse, and some haunters have specific uses for them corpses. So that's the base differences there. There's all the different components. This book just does a little bit better showing off some of these different stuff. Gaining, losing traits. Critical is just in the bottom. General damage, physical damage, all that type of stuff. The dice, attack rolls, other rolls, how to play your turns. So some cards will have these special tile symbols on them, which are special actions that you can do, which is kind of fun as well. I'm trying to see where some of these other turns are. How to play, the haunt begins. There are 4 different types of haunts that can happen now. No traitor, 1 traitor, a hidden traitor, or a free-for-all. So a bunch of different stuff like that. The line of sight was added in here. Refers to 2 tiles must be within a line of sight. If an explorer can move from one tile to the other without changing direction. If a tile is in a line of sight, all characters are in it. So it's only 2 tiles away. I think before you could shoot like across the entire house. If you had a line of sight. Yeah, it's just kind of interesting. Looting bodies, obstacles, and different stuff like that. And then the anatomy of a haunt. They kind of updated these books a little bit. So they kind of show, like, you can see. Now, they're not highlighted, these colors, in the actual trader tomes for the new one, for 3rd edition. But there are other things broke down. So you have your title, your introduction, same place in both ones. Side 3 is your main gameplay, so what you're trying to do. Side 4, here's going to be other information. Objective, tokens needed, what happens if you win. And then 5 for the trader is you actually get if you have a monster. There's different things for playing the haunt, controlling monsters, stuff like that. And there's all this character information. And then the index. They didn't have a giant appendix with all these different texts in here, because you shouldn't have to necessarily look all that stuff up. I did want to point out, so they also did here, is they put these little asterisks by all the new stuff. So critical traits, like heal a trait. Heal a trait's a big one I want to point out for being bad new. If an effect tells you to heal a trait, return that to its starting value. If the trait is already above, it stays where it's at. So in the original one, there's lots of stuff where, like, oh, you basically like move up 1, you get 1 back here, maybe 2 back. This is actually stuff that lets you fully heal, so it can be very useful. And there's general damage, which you can apply wherever you like. Which they did that before, but now it actually just specifies the general damage. And then burying was one of the other new effects. It says you may be instructed to bury a tile. To bury a tile, put it in the bottom of the stack. To bury a card, put it in the bottom of its deck. So all you're doing is you just recycle into the bottom. You'll get back to it. Alright, so that's the basis of the instructions. I'm just going to do a quick comparison of the first guide. So we start off, we open up the book for the edition 2. We have the Mummy Walks. I'm not going to go through all this. But you can kind of see where it's like, here's what you should read. Here's what you have to do right now. What kind of know about the bad guys, how you win. What you have to do as the hero and how you win. So it kind of gives you the stuff you need to know, like, in there, but you have to read through to suss it all out. So now, comparatively, if I look at the new book, first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to get a recap of all my different symbols, what all my different tokens are, so if they mention it, I know exactly what token I'm looking for. Then, during the first one, we have, this one's just going to show, here's my introduction, read this first, here's my setup, that's what I actually need to do. Here's what I can do during my turn and different things. See my special actions I can take, showing off the little icons. You know what happens if I'm in this area, I can do this. If I'm in this area, I can do this thing. So it breaks it down a little bit nicer, showing like each individual thing. Tokens you're going to need, tokens, and that's going to be the same for everybody. And how you win. And then on the side here for the first one, it actually then mentions introduction, setup, special actions, tokens, win, what they all mean. So when you're first starting to play, oh, okay, that's what all these mean. And then when you go to the second one, after that, they don't bring all that extra information in there. Now to compare the trader tomes, 2nd edition. So again, we have our big old haunting chart, which is kind of a pain compared to the new one. And then we have the Mummy Walks again. So just going to say that, again, you're right now, what you need to do right away, how you set stuff up, what you need to know to win, and then list the stats for the mummy that you might be fighting, and then different things you have to do. Now, if you look at the Trader Tome for version 3, again, you know all the different tokens. Get that special ink stuff on the side, and then we have the same as the Jack one. So you have our introduction setup, what we're going to do, how you set up the game, what you're going to need. So your objective is to be different, but you're still going to have the same type of tokens. And then what your special actions are. You can do this special thing. And then you have a monster here with all its stats, and what it does, and how you take control of it, and things like that. You can flip through all the rest of these and kind of see they have different stuff. Like this one, you're gonna need some different tokens there, different monsters, nest tokens. The blood token actually shows the tokens you're gonna need for some of these. If you need a special thing, I'm trying to find like a different one here. This one has multiple different monsters. You can keep track of that. I'm not trying to show off too much of this. This one has one of special stats depending on who you're playing against or fighting. So yeah, the newer ones are set up a lot better, in my opinion. Alright, so then we're going to look at the tokens and the cards. Alright, so the tokens are, I'm not trying to just say, oh, the second game's better. The third edition's better. But it has a lot more different tokens, which can add to a lot more uniqueness in the game, as well as they're a little bit nicer. So the original ones, or at least second edition here, they're gonna have little monsters like this. They'll have numbers on them. So this is monster number 24. It has an S for stunned on that side. And then we're gonna have a bunch of these. That one's number 7. And then we might have this style here, which instead this is this guy, which is number 10. And we have like Cthulhu tentacles, which are 15. And then each different ones, there's different colors. There's like this guy that's number 1. And there's a 3, there's a 5 in this one. So they have different versions, which each have different numbers. So they're going to tell you, so that way if you have them on the board, you can be like, oh, I have, Cthulhu tentacle, which one do I have? Oh, I'm playing number 15, doing this. Now, the newer one does the same idea, but they just have it listed as small monsters. They didn't separate them out into all these different styles. So basically you have either big named monsters or you have small monsters. They don't have a yellow one, a green one, a red one, an orange one, a purple one. Which, again, that's kind of nice on this side because it adds that little extra aesthetic. I know which one I'm playing as. But then it also means I have 3 times as many tiles as I have to dig through to figure out which one. So like that first one, let's say I'm just fighting that mummy. Which he's going to be one of these tiles. So there's my mummy. But like if I have to summon like he spawns like 2 more mummies, let's say. I have to then find a token that fits for the mummy picture. Okay, then I have to find number 2 of that one. So I'm digging through all the other ones. The other ones here, I think there's like 20 of them, and they're just small monsters. And on the back, they actually say stunned. A little bit more helpful. And the monsters, like we have mummy, Ouroboros head, Dracula. So they all, work the same. Versus the new ones, we have head of the house. We just have a vampire. Or a giant wasp. And they're going to have stun. So those guys are relatively the same, just depending on what story you're doing. But then, that's about the monsters about most of the tiles for the first game, or the second edition. Then we're going to have all these little black ones, which we can have. This represents skeletons for some reason. This is our secret passage, which is the same shape and style. This one's an empty vault. So when you empty that vault, it's just to place this token on there, so you know you've been in the vault. Here's a drip for whatever reason. So there's all these different ones, that represent different effects throughout the game, but they're all just square black tokens. Then you're going to get some that are special might rolls, knowledge rolls, all your different stats. You're going to have a bunch of these. And then you have some for items. It's just like, oh, you get item number 6, or it says items. So they're kind of like mystery. But again, they're one of the 3 different shapes for all those different things. The upgraded ones, you're going to get tokens for your different skills, but here's sanity. So on the back, they're all going to be traits. You're not going to, maybe you don't know which one, and you flip them over, they're actually color-coded. So that way you can easily tell which one's which. That's kind of a fun little thing, so you can mix and match which ones. But they also have a lot more different tiles. Some things are going to use blood tiles. They flip over. Some are nest tiles. We have light switches, or switches for turning things on or off. So it's going to add just an extra little gameplay. We have lots of these double-sided, like, these are traps. Or these are food. So we're trying to find finding things that actually represent stuff. We can get a portal or a quest might use a videotape. Now I'm assuming these all use multiple. We have fire, which are the same on both sides. We have this room's been searched, or we have hidden, which gives you a hidden status. We have obstacles, which we mentioned on that one card, which are the same on both sides, just because it's an obstacle card. You also get tokens for all the different players. They're double-sided for each of their different things. So there might be something where you have to, like, you're playing a 3-player game and you have to have one of the other characters in there. But that way you can drop one of these in there versus having the extra model and trying to remember what that is. There's some special ruin tokens. There's these number tokens which are used, which are all blank, so you might have to draw them. I kind of wish if there's stuff where you had to draw, they would have had at least a little baggie. There's like the secret passage, which we're going to need 2 of these, but they're different shaped. Like there are other squares, but the squares are all different sizes. So you have a big one, a medium one, and a small one. So if you're trying to draw the squares for a certain thing, they're different sizes. The traps in videotapes are about the same size, but they're a little bit shaped different. Then there's like this one instance of an altar and a contract, which again is shaped different. So they make all the different tiles shaped differently, so that way if you're trying to find them, you can grab them very quickly. Big monster, small monster. I just need a small monster, I grab it. You know, you don't have to dig through all these extra tiles. So that's just one little difference they also have in there. Alright, then we're going to look at the cards. Alright, so the last component we have to go through are all of the actual cards. So, Edition 3 is going to get some special cards. I have a trader card here. Which just lets you know what you're doing as a trader. You still explore the game, not required to draw events. Just as a reminder of what you can and kind of can't do as the trader. We also have one for monsters, which just gives your stats on what a monster can and can't do. It's something you just kind of leave on the table for everyone to see so they know what they can do. Like, that they can move between different things, they can attack, they can't hold items, stuff like that. Then finally there is a double-sided reference card that you're going to get, which is going to have what, and there are going to be 6 of these, so 1 for each player. So there'll be a reference to what you can do on your turn, how to start the haunt, playing the haunt, and then haunting tips. Again, these are just kind of nice, like every game when they have especially big rules like this, have a little tip card out that you can have. Even if they only gave you 1 of these, you had to maybe pass around. Wouldn't be terrible having 1 for each player, just so you know what you can do on your turn. And you know it's broke down nice and easily. Discovering new tiles and all that stuff. What to do on the haunt. All that fun stuff. So yeah, reference cards are almost a must in any game anymore. I did not go through the dice. The dice are the same in both sets, so I didn't bother to really go through them. They have the different pips. Alright, then we have our various other cards. We have Omen cards, which they did a very good job of making these different colors now and stand out. So now the new ones are now just green. They have a cool pattern on them too with their green. So they're kind of easy to get mixed up with the events. So the original events, these are kind of green. The events were yellow. These are definitely green and yellow. You can easily tell them. The same pattern. Actually, I think there's actually a different part of the pattern. I think it's probably the same pattern on the back, but you can easily tell them apart by different colors. And even the same with, you know, the items. The items are now bright red. These are kind of yellow with like a red. These are kind of yellow with like a green. They just made them stand out that much quicker. And then even on the flip side of all of them, it's the same idea. So the opposite of the events, they flip over. They're both yellowish, which is fine. But then the items went from being like that yellow-red to now they're just gray. Again, to kind of help make sure they're differentiated from everything else. And then the omens, if we flip them over, have kind of like this greenish pattern, and then now they're just green. So it's just definitely, I don't know why they didn't just make the back of the item cards gray to kind of go with the front of them, but, you know, that's alright. So I'm going to do now is go through all the cards. Now, they're not going to be one-to-ones. I'm not going to read through all of them. We're just going to kind of look over some of them kind of quick. But, yeah, they didn't go one-to-one exact because some of the rule changes, how that works. And just to, like, makes it a little bit different. So here we both have masks. So, like, for second edition, you're going to roll a sanity. +4, you can put the mask on or take it off. If you put the mask on, gain 2 knowledge, lose 2 sanity. Take it off, reverse. 0 to 3, you can't use the mask turn, then make your haunt roll. The new one says, now you add 1 to the result of your speed rolls. So it changes, it goes from sanity knowledge, now it's a speed roll. Then I have a special ability. It says, during your turn, you may use the mask to move everyone else on your tile. Explores and monsters to adjacent tiles. This effect does not be used to discover new tiles. And it says, when this card is drawn, make the haunt roll. Ignore this if the haunt has already begun. So kind of just add that little reminder at the bottom of each one. Also the fact is, if it's already happened, you don't have to do it. But you can see, it definitely changes 100% how it works. It's not the same card, even though it has the same name. Plus they added the little picture on there, which is really nice. So I got an idea of what I'm doing. And then saying that, like, we have the ring. And again, I'm not going to go through every text on all of these. But your second edition says, if you attack an opponent that has sanity trait, you can make your attack with sanity instead of might, and they defend with sanity. Now the new one says you add 1 to the result of your sanities. When you attack, you may use the sanity each, and they take mental damage. You only use 1 weapon per attack. You may not trade weapons the same turn in which it was used for an attack. So it kind of has a similar thing, but it gives you a boost to your stats. So again, this kind of goes into the more making the game a little bit easier. Because they're adding, hey, you have this item, you're going to get a bonus stat. And then, like, again, with the first one, where you lost, you gained and lost stats, you have to keep track of that, and then when you lost the item, you have to change them again. They kind of got, again, you didn't have that stealing thing, so you don't have to worry about someone taking your item away and messing with your stats. Plus, your stats just kind of go up. They got rid of a lot of the stuff where you only lose stats by failing, like, a skill test or, like, taking damage, and not just from having an item or walking into a room. It's like holy symbols, again, gain 2 sanity. Now lose 2 sanities if you lose the symbol. Instead, now you just gain 1 to your sanity rolls. So you have it. Your rolls are better. Your actual stack is not. Which is also a very big difference. Because you might have something that later says, you know, if you have this much sanity, you do this. If you have this much might, you can do this. Now you don't have that. You just gain extra die for it. It says when you discover a tile, you may choose to bury it and discover the next tile. So it gives an extra little effect. Alright, then we have a book. Same thing. It gets rid of that gaining, losing, and just gives you bonuses. We have a skull, which they just, you know, have that couple of different things there. If you take mental damage, you may take all of it as physical instead. And the new one says the knowledge. So someone will cause you to expire. First, roll 3 dice. 4 to 6, step dying. So all your traits to critical or 0 to 3 may die. So it gives you at least a potential option to not die. And then we have the dog, which is the companion. So the original one had companions, and they got rid of that. So now, before the dog, you'd actually put a token on there. The dog would move around the board, and they kind of dropped that. And there are 2 other cards in this set that are companions. We have the girl, and we have the madman. Which both are kind of interesting. It's kind of a neat idea. But again, because there's only those 3 cards were the only way, like, for heroes to, like, have an extra thing helping you out, and it gave you an extra thing to keep track of, they just dropped it. It wasn't being utilized enough. So instead, the basic dog just letting you do the same idea. You can trade items with other players, just it doesn't have it as you have to have a tile, and then the dog can move around. You have to keep track of what is going on here and keep track of that. Now the rest of the Omen cards are different. So we have like a spear and we have a dagger. The original one also has a medallion, a crystal ball, a spirit board, and a bite. It has 13 cards. It's trying to, spooky, supernatural number of 13. The new set only has 9. So you have the dagger, the armor, and the idol. So you're going to get a couple of different things there. Again, because I think they're trying to make all of them physical things that you could hold and move around. You can trade with other players. You can't trade a bite with another player. Like, in the spirit board and crystal board were kind of like, again, I think you're maybe trying to push away from being old supernatural, maybe more modern supernatural. Kind of same with the spear. No one really carries a spear around necessarily. And then they got rid of the companions. Now, if the idol, armor, and dagger do sound familiar, it's because if we hop into our items, so if we grab our items, our old set, we have the armor, we have the idol, and we have 2 different daggers. So they kind of move those over into the item category versus that. So like the daggers do a little bit different. So the item says when you use the dagger, lose 1 good stack, lose 1 speed, roll 2 extra dice on the attack. Now the old one here has kind of a similar thing. You roll 3 additional dice, maximum 8 when you make a might attack. If you do lose 1 speed, so you get more extra dice, and you lose 1 speed. But it also says this can't be if it's stolen. You take 2 damage. They got rid of that kind of thing. So this is kind of very similar to that, but the sacrificial dagger has a very similar effect. You get a roll extra, but you have to take a mental trait. Then we had the idol, which lets you gain extra dice, but you lose sanity. And the other one changes completely. You get different stuff. And then finally we had the armor. Anytime, not just once per turn, you take physical damage, reduce it by 1. And then the same thing. Works the same way. They just moved it into an item card versus, or they moved over to the Omen cards in the new set versus having it being item. Alright, so let's look at the rest of the items. We're going to kind of jump through. These guys some are the same. We have Rabbit's Foot. We have the Angel's Feather. We have Dynamite, which is a little bit easier to use. Now it's 5+, now it's only 4+. Nice and helpful as well. We have the gun versus the revolver. So they just kind of change. You also see the text on here a little bit nicer. So you know, I like to have this reminder text. If they didn't have that on there, this card would be even easier to read. But then they just, they moved up the same, they just kind of condensed all the stuff there together. Plus, they didn't have, because of line of sight now being in the rules, they don't have to list it on the cards everywhere. Then ones that are similar, but not necessarily the same, is they have the Amulet of Ages versus Strange Amulet. Again, getting all these stats when you lose the item, they go down. Here, it's just getting this. They're trying to reduce the amount of, if you lose items, you have to remember to drop your stats back down. Because how many times is someone like, oh, I gave away this item, or I lost it for some reason, or whatever I did, and then they have to try and remember to reduce all this, oh, I didn't, and then later someone reminds them, okay, would that kill me, or did it not, or, so just trying to get rid of some of that maintenance you have to do. We have a Lucky Stone versus a Lucky Coin, Medical Kit versus First Aid. And this goes back to that new thing of healing all. So the new one says, you may bury First Aid Kit, heal all your critical traits. You may use your First Aid Kit to heal another explorer on your tile. So you have any traits that are critical, you can heal all only critical. The Medical Kit lets you roll dice using your knowledge to gain up to 3 points in a physical, 2 points in a physical, or 1 point in a physical. So it's kind of a little back and forth, because the First Aid you have to wait until you're in critical to heal, but it heals you fully, which usually that's about 4 points, which is super helpful. The Medical Kit you could use at any time to heal number of stats But the two problems is, one, it only heals physical traits, and it's only going to, you have to have a knowledge roll. So if you have a dumb character, they're not going to do it. Or if all your damage has been going to mental damage, this doesn't help either. It's just kind of just interesting how they swap some of that. We have a candle versus a flashlight. During events, you can roll 2 extra dice. Or, if you draw an event, this is a bunch of other stuff. If you have the bell, the book, and the candle, gain 2 in each trait. Then the first time you lose one of these 3 items, later in the game, lose 2 from each trait. The collection's kind of a neat idea, but again, it's, you know, you have healing salve versus strange medicine. So it says this one lets you heal people in both rooms if the explorer's might or speed is below starting value. Raise one or both to starting value. So that kind of works similar to the first aid kit, but again, it's only for might or speed, not for any stats. And this one just lets you heal your might and stat, you know, but you heal it to full. It just go ahead and do it. Smelling salts, not necessarily equal to a chainsaw. Chainsaw and the axe is your melee weapons that they have. And then the rest of these don't really match. We have pickpocket's glove, head bones, brooch, and a music box. All do very different things. The bell and the leather jacket. You can see the items in the 3rd edition don't have all these rolling and doing all this other stuff. Like these have, roll this to do all this. These are just end your turn, gain a trait, or when you have this, you gain a bonus. You get an extra roll. They made the items a lot more simpler to use versus having to roll all these extra stat bonuses to get stuff. Dark dice, watch. There's a map. And we have a machete, crossbow. I'm just going to put the other ones over here. We have a mirror, creepy doll, and a magic camera. So yeah, they simplified everything overall, just to try and make the game, I think, a little bit easier, a little bit quicker. Then we finally have events. Now again, like the other ones, there's some events that are very similar to each other, and then a lot that are very different. So like both of these have a secret passage, which lets you do stuff. So the original one, roll 3 dice and place the secret passage token in it, any existing room, and then, or one of the special rooms. You can use that secret passage even if you don't have any movement left, and you can move from one secret passage to another, counts as 1 space. Versus the newer one, instead now you have to make a knowledge roll. Place another secret passage on any other tile, gain 1 knowledge. Or you just place it on a ground floor, or you place it on the basement and you lose 1 sanity. So this one's actually a little bit more, not necessarily as nice, because you might take damage from it. But you might gain damage. We have Jonas' Turn. Basically the same idea, except this one requires you having the puzzle box. Discards that item, replaces it, and you gain sanity. Otherwise, you take damage. This one just says discard an item. They got rid of the stuff requiring other items. It's kind of nice because you don't have to try and find stuff, but they're not. Some of these cards aren't sitting around useful. A Moment of Hope. Place a blessing token on the tile. We have Spider and Spiders. Some different effects. Burning Man versus Burning Figure. Funeral. Hanged Men. Phone Call. Secret Stairs and Secret Elevator. About the closest I could get to having 2 different ones in the same thing. Very similar as we have Mystic Slide and Technical Difficulties, which lets you fall to the basement. So that's about the only events that kind of match up. Then all the rest are very different. Shrieking Wing, Creaking Doors, we have Rotten, Bat Out of Hell, Skeletons, A Cry for Help, Possession, The Oldest House. I couldn't find any of these that really matched up. Because the newer ones try and get rid of some of that minus stat icons and some of that stuff. They take damage, but they try to have plus and minuses. You also see there's a lot, maybe not as many dice rolling on these, where it seems like every event in the original one has a die roll. They tried to not have nearly as many of them. But plus they're also updating some, like we have a radio broadcast. Some different stuff here, get items. The walls, mysterious fluid. I didn't get a lot of different stuff. Drip, drip, drip. Dark and stormy night. You have a cassette player. What the? Brain food. We have smoke and alien geometry. Again, trying to go for some of the more modern horror themes. Debris and footsteps. Bloody vision, flickering lights. I do like that they also made the text all italicized for just like what it, just the flavor text helps, but they didn't really do a lot of this stuff where they wrote extra special stuff or things like that. Impossible architect, disquieting sounds, something hitting, severed hand. The locked safe, a jar of organs. Angry being, the deepest closet. The voice, a tiny robot. Creepy puppet, taxidermy. Mist from the walls, stars at night. Closet door, wandering ghost. Grave dirt, poor Yorick. Webs, the clown room, that one's really fun. The beckoning. An eerie feeling. Hideous shriek, behind you. Lights out. And there's a bite, which is kind of matched the Omen from before. Now I'm going to do is just quickly show off the rest of the original one. So we have something slimy, silence, whoops, creepy crawlers, and it is meant to be. So those are the last of those. Now the last 5 for 3rd edition are actually kind of fun, because what they do is they actually can activate the haunt early. Or a specific haunt. So like you get Vial of Dust or a Splash of Crimson. If you roll, you do a haunt roll. Whether, even though you haven't drawn an Omen. If you roll a certain one, you end up starting Haunt 3 or Haunt 1. Otherwise you might do that, and it's just kind of neat. And they have 5 of these. They have Eerie Mirror, The House is Hungry, and Say Cheese. So that's actually, I really thought that was a fun idea. They added a couple different event cards that can also add it. So although now you have 9 Omen cards, it'll automatically trigger that haunt. You also have some of the event cards that might occasionally pop up. Now, as I said in my unboxing for 3rd edition, the event cards, I think there's 42 tiles, and I think there was like 15 cards that have events on them. So even if you placed every room, you're not even going to get through half of the event deck. You're only going to get 15 of the 42 cards. Chances are that every game you're going to get through, you're going to end up playing every single tile, is probably not going to happen. So, I mean, even if you got, 10 of them every time, you might have to maybe play 4 or 5 games before you get through every single one, or you see every single event. So having all the different things, you're probably going to see most of the Omens every time, at least half every time, and the items can be hit or miss again. I didn't count how many items there were. Alright, so the last thing I want to show off is just box storage. So one sec. Alright, just because I like to show this off, because I think it's a thing lots of people are curious about. So the storage for the game, so actually the dice for the original are white, where the new ones are yellow. But the storage for the 2nd edition is you have a spot here for all your tiles. They fit in there. There's some nice finger holes to grab these out. There's a little bit of leeway room in there. You have a spot here for all your tokens. I wish there was a better way to store the tokens than just dumping them in a little hole. Just because, again, like, I'm going through, I'm trying to find, I need Dracula. Where the hell is Dracula here? Where's my secret stairs in here? I'm gonna have to dig through there. But being that, except for the very few things, like maybe the secret stairs, or something like that, which that you could maybe like leave them like with the dice or do something different so you can find it quicker. Most of the rest of them you're only going to use during that hunt setup, not every game, not all the time. So you might have to dig through it one time, pull them tiles out, then you're done. So it's not terrible. And that's for both games. So having them mixed together is like one hand, it's kind of a thing, but then again, the other hand is how, even if you have something to separate them, you'd have to have like 5-6 different little trays, because that way you can separate different styles. You're not going to be able to separate every single kind. So it's just kind of a nitpick. Then this will sit on top like that. Underneath the characters, we have another little pocket hole in there, which is actually where I put like all the generic-y ones, like the wall switch on it. It's actually where the secret stairs would go, so I don't have to dig through all of them. I just have to pull these characters out of the way every time. I have all the clips in the baggie because they don't, again, second edition, they don't stick on there. Now, there are little spots on the sides of each of these where you probably could, if the thing would stick on there, you could leave them little things on there. But since they slide off, I would just take them back out every time. And then over the dice is where all your cards will go. So you just drop all them in there. Again, nice finger hold. There's a little bit of a gap in there. A little bit of a space. If you sleeve your cards, which you can buy sleeves for these, they're not the common cheapy sleeves, but you can buy them. Is they will, they might not fit in here overall. Like, they might fit in up and down. Yeah, so they're going to be this type of sleeve. 88 by 108 millimeters. The thing is, we're going to add thickness to all of them, regardless. So they're not going to fit up and down. By the time you sleeve all of these, they would flip up over the top. Now, you could put a couple in here if you wanted to help negate that. I just want to see what happens if I sleeve one of these. Will they fit? So this sleeve fits pretty well. And then, yeah, so it'll fit in there. But, you know, like, if I sleeve every one of these, it's going to have too much thickness. This is going to sit up over the top. So they're not necessarily meant to be sleeved. You know, again, you could throw a couple over in the other spots and that. And then we throw our books on top. Otherwise, you know, if you're not worried about just sleeving all that, box holds everything nice in there. I always think something like this, especially tokens, would be kind of nice with a plastic tray that went over the top, because there's such a gap in here. Though if I flip this upside down, there's enough room for stuff to move. And it wouldn't take much for this to flip up, just enough for them tokens to spread around. So if like you're trying to travel. Alright, so we're going to look at box number, or the 3rd edition box. So we're going to have the same thing with the dice over here. You drop our cards in. It's the exact same thing, except now if you notice, there's no extra leeway in there. And there's still that gap. So if I sleeve any of these, they're not going to fit over the top at all. And then if I do sleeve one, I'm going to pop some of these out. It will fit in there though. So you might just have to find a different solution for storing that. Otherwise, it's already, top one's already kind of popping on top. Now there's not as nice of a hole to get these cards out. The same thing for the tiles. The tiles that go down here, they do fit in there. They fit a little bit tighter than the original, in the 2nd edition. And there's not as good of a finger gap to get them out. Like, you can, but, you know, they're not as easy. They're still doable. The big other changes they did was they have all the figures have their own little spots rather than just dumping them into the pile. And then you put all your tokens in there. So I guess I would have rather had another spot where I just dump all my figures and stuff in this corner like the original one. And then not have all these mixed. Because now it's just even more of a variety. I have to dig through these even more. The one upside is that since these won't fall off, I could put all of these, attach all of them onto there. It's going to lift this up above this space right here, but it won't probably ever lift it up over that whole thing. So I could probably still put all those in there. So it's a little bit nicer that way. I could keep them clips on characters every time and not have to be taking them on and taking them off all the time, which is kind of nice. And then the books will slide in, much like the original one. But now, because I don't have anything extra, I'm not as worried about that if I put this upside down, except these cards might slide around a bit. Alright, so that is what we have. My box is already breaking. That is what we have for Betrayal at the House on the Hill versus second edition versus first edition. So the only other thing I can mention about this is overall third edition I think is a lot better, has a little bit better components. For the most part, a little bit better rule book. The haunts and stuff seem to be laid out a little bit nicer. All that type of stuff. The minor nitpick was the texture on the tile cards. Sometimes make the text a little bit hard to read, but they also didn't have a lot on there. Most of them it's getting a trait, then you ignore it. They didn't have, you have to keep reading rules. They got rid of. They made the game, I think, a little bit easier overall, which is nice. So the last two things to mention would be, one, I wish they would do a tutorial mission, set these specific tiles out, or have these specific tiles in there, this direction. Like, you're going to draw this, you're going to draw this tile, and then, you know, you're going to have 3 Omen cards, you're going to do, like, it's going to be like a 15-minute game, you're going to, like, have a couple of turns to get used to moving around, picking up an item, doing something, start to haunt, like, after, like, 2 or 3 rooms. It's a quick haunt, just like, hey, this guy's a killer. You guys stop him. And it gets everyone sort of familiar with how to play it that way. That way you're playing with brand new people. You could jump in very easily and show them how to do it. So I played second edition a few times with people that have never really played board games. It takes a while for me to get them to understand just the basic rules sometimes. But then when I always got to the haunt mechanic, I always had to turn over and be the haunter, regardless of what character I was, because they weren't familiar with or comfortable enough to figure out how to play that deduction side or how the rules necessarily worked. So I kind of wish there was just a quick tutorial to get people into the game. Here's a 15-minute game. Done. You understand how the game is played. Then now it's like, hey, next time you guys come over, we can play a full game, and then maybe they'll be ready to play it, or you could sit down and play another full game right away, now that everyone understands what you're doing. The other thing to mention is, second edition also has an expansion, which I forgot what it was called, which added some new item cards and some of this stuff. Also added, I think, 50 new haunts. Now, the way that third edition is based, you're not going to be able to add that to that. So if you have second edition and its expansion, you might not want to pick up third edition, because now you have all them extra haunts. Although, the way I do understand, if you have the expansion to second edition, none of the haunts are going to work without using all the new components or all the new cards and all that stuff from that expansion. So basically, you have to just mix it in, and now it's together. Are they going to do so it'd be kind of cool, so maybe they might do an expansion, like make a third edition or a second edition, I guess it would be at that point. That's the only thing that's confusing. They might maybe they'll re-release that expansion to go with third edition, which would be kind of fun. There are also three other Betrayal types of games. There is the Dungeons and Dragons Betrayal game. There is a simplified version for Scooby-Doo. So you can play either one of them if you want a different setting. You want more D&D, Dungeons and Dragons type style, you can get that one. Or you could get the Scooby-Doo one, which is just a little bit simpler, a little bit easier, it's more kid-friendly. Then the third type is Legacy. So Betrayal Legacy is going to use the second edition rules, but it is going to have a thing where you play each game, stuff happens, you might tear up cards, you might put stickers on cards, your characters go from game to game to game. Sometimes it's maybe their kids or their grandkids. you die, next game you reroll, you get a new character, but like then you can keep playing, or if your character survives, you play as that character. If the traitor survives, maybe you're playing the traitor as now a good guy the next time. It's a very interesting game to play, or look at. If you like Betrayal, that might even be a better solution. This you're only gonna get one full like campaign out of it before you like sticker and all this stuff to the cards, so then you can't restart the campaign over. But if you're planning on playing a ton of games in a row with the same group of people, that might even be a way to go. I don't unfortunately own it, so I can't do an unboxing of all of it. But there are some good videos online you can go watch. Alright, so that's what we got for Betrayal. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Super long video, but I hope it explained anything. If you have questions on different cards or the comparison between different components or something, leave a comment and I'll try and address them. See you guys later. Bye.